Hey folks, it's Lauren again today. I've sort of been on this kick lately, sharing autoharps and working the songs of the Spanish Civil War. I was talking about that, and I'm going to go down to Chile today with a song about the great Chilean poet and folk singer Victor Jara. And this is against the fascists of Chile in my own lifetime. When I was in high school, or in college, the forces of General Pinochet overthrew Salvador Allende, supposedly with the help of the CIA, but I don't know that for a fact. So this sort of thing recycles itself as in the 20th century. I don't know why that word fascism has become such a touchy word for some people. I looked it up. It's attributed to Mussolini, who became a dictator in Italy in the 1920s. But it goes back much further than that. But Mussolini's idea of fascism was bringing together and uniting the corporations with a very strong, powerful central government led by a strongman dictator. And the deal that they were making with each other was that the dictator would control the population of the workers and keep them in line so that the corporations could maximize their profits. Sounds kind of familiar. Another word for fascism, not saying it right, from that time period has been shown, or people think, is the word corporatism. But fascism itself is again an authoritative central government with no democracy to it, and it favors the wealthy, favors the corporations. In Italy, I guess that would be the car makers like Fiat. And I don't know. I have to see what corporations benefited by having Mussolini in power. Anyway, in the 1970s, a socialist government was elected in Chile by the working people, and the general of the army, Pinochet, led a revolt and arrested a lot of the workers and executed them, a lot of the leaders anyway. And Victor Jara himself was not a fighter with a weapon. Like Woody Guthrie, his weapon of choice was his guitar and his voice and his songs, which were a great threat to the generals. One of the things we've been fortunate so far in the United States is that our military has kept out of our domestic politics. And so we've been able to struggle back and forth between swinging left or right or whatever it might be. And hopefully it'll stay that way. So this particular Wildwood Flower, I wanted to set up in something a little different. So I used a reentrant tuning. So the first note on the harp is a B flat, which is the root note of one of the two keys on the instrument. And then together, the first 5 strings create a B flat pentatonic, and it's not all sequenced from low to high. And then in the middle of the harp, there are some octave pairs, like this C, G, and then the C comes back down to the D below it. Then E flat B, there's an octave pair. B flat F comes down to the F below it. Another octave pair. So I was able to figure out, with using certain gauge strings, how to get octave pairs in the middle of the instrument, of the autoharp. And then when you get to the top, The diatonic scales of B flat and E flat give way to the E flat pentatonic. So there's a B flat pentatonic in the big lower part and an E flat pentatonic on top. And that all that means is that you're dropping the fourth note in the scale and the seventh note of the scale. So you're dropping from 7 notes down to 5 notes, thus pentatonic. So in the E flat, it would be E flat, F, G, leave the A flat out, B flat, and C. And as long as you have those 5 notes, you get a real pretty open. You can almost you play that as an open chord at the top, because the pentatonic is also used in autoharp language as a big chord. It would be an E flat 6/9, I think Will Smith would probably call that. All right, that's all my music lesson for today. Here's my song, Victor Jara of Chile, the music was composed by our old friend Arlo Guthrie. So we started with a Woody Guthrie, and we've gone through the Guthrie family, and I posted a video of Arlo playing an autoharp that looked an awful lot like one that I set up, and I don't know if he got that from me through Sue Shire or if it's just a coincidence, but if you're going to study the Guthrie family, then the autoharp is certainly part of their legacy, although it's not a big part, but they like to do Carter family stuff, so when they do the Carter family, they get out their autoharps. But this is Arlo's contribution to this genre of song about fighting the fascists. Victor Jara of Chile lived like a shooting star. He fought for the people of Chile with his songs and his guitar. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Victor Jara was a peasant. He worked from a few years old. He sat upon his father's plow and he watched the earth unfold. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Now when the neighbors had a wedding, one of their children died. His mother sang all night for them, with Victor at her side, and his hands were gentle, his hands were strong. He grew up to be a fighter for the people who'd been wronged. He listened to their grief and joy, and he turned it all into song. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Well, he sang about the copper miners and those who worked the land. He sang about the factory workers. They knew he was their man. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Well, he campaigned for Allende, working night and day. He sang, take hold of your brother's hand, you know the future begins today. And his hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Then the generals, they seized Chile, arrested Victor then. They caged him in a stadium with 5,000 frightened men. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Well, Victor stood in the stadium. His voice was brave and strong. He sang for his fellow prisoners till the guards cut short his song. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. Well, they broke the bones in both his hands. They beat him on his head. They tore him with electric shocks before they shot him dead. His hands were gentle, his hands were strong. His hands were gentle. His hands were strong. The song Victor Jara. The words were written by Adrian Michell, but the music was added by Arlo Guthrie. So thanks for listening. We'll see how long this run of protest songs goes. This might be the last one. I hope you all having a good time wherever you are. And thinking about ways that we can make this country last the way we dream of it.